Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity to be able to talk to us this afternoon. My name is Victor EOA. I am presently a research fellow at the University of Nottingham, and I am also the lead of the gas fermentation of the aerobic gas fermentation facilities here at the University of Nottingham, Synthetic Biology Research Center. I am basically going to talk about health and safety in the workplace today. And I must put a disclaimer that I'm not an expert in health and safety, but from my experience, I'm going to share with us some of my experiences putting my work both in Nigeria as a biotechnologist and also here in the UK as well. So I would draw on my experience to touch on the need for health and safety in the workplace. So sometimes you might hear me making reference to some of my biological backgrounds. It doesn't necessarily mean that health and safety is specific to those in the biological or indeed health sector. It cuts across a lot of boundaries. So please pardon me if you feel I'm too specific. But yes, so
apologies, Victor. A quick one. I'm not sure if you captured my last remark in terms of the duration and rules around the timing. So apologies. I'm just going to shoot that in really quickly if you don't mind. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, apologies for that. Yeah. So the time now starts at, so we're supposed to start at 12:44, but now it's 12:55. So again, this session is an hour and a half. So within that 1 hour and a half, you can, there's a mandatory 10 minutes break in between. So you can take that at your discretion, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, so you can proceed. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for notifying me on that. So yes, it's going to be hopefully not a very long session, and it's going to involve our participation as well. I have made a survey, and I'm going to share the link on the chat. So if you want to, feel free to join in the survey. And then I've also made a poll as well, just to get some sort of feedback from us. Normally, when you go to health and safety training, it is usually a two-way thing. So it's usually someone is teaching, but then other people are actually doing it. So feedback is very important when it comes to health and safety in the workplace. So today we are just going to look at what health and safety means generally in the workplace. And some aspect of it, we would get to understand some of the dangers of inadequate health and safety implementation in the workplace. What are the danger it poses? And then also the idea generally is just to get us talking about health and safety and know some of the basic laws around health and safety. I'm going to draw on some of those laws from Nigeria, because I was actually of the opinion that this was going to be, for most of us, based in Nigeria. So I'm not sure if there are people based elsewhere, like myself, Brad John, and I think some other people are based elsewhere. But yeah, I think it's important to everyone, but I'm just going to draw a little bit on some of the Nigerian laws on that one. And then just show us some of the common example of health and safety implementation, such as manual handling, handling of chemical and biological agents, and then of course, DSC assessment as well. So let's start. I want to start by giving an example. While I was growing up, in my university days, during my undergraduate, I never was told about health and safety in the laboratory. I can't remember ever being told about it. And then even during my project, we go into the lab. I worked with Staph aureus, I worked with Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and then I also worked with Escherichia coli. Most of these, actually two out of these three organisms are biological safety level 2 organisms. And biological safety level 2 organisms are expected to be handled under biological safety level 2 guidelines. But I was never told about any of this. So I go into the lab and, carry out my experiment as I should. And then, well, thankfully, I came out of it alive and without any serious infection or implication to my personal health. But there are several people who have been in such scenarios, particularly those that are working in virology, who probably haven't come out of it alive. And most of this notion is drawn from the fact that most of us are actually told that science is it's something that requires sacrifice, and that a lot of people actually, for example, the guys who discover cholera, the guys who discover yellow fever, majority of them actually did what we call self-experimentation, and they carried on tests on themselves, and most of them went on to win Nobel Prizes on their research. So when you look at all these things, you are drawn to the fact that you have to make sacrifices in order for you to be able to be effective at your workplace. And most often than not, we do this at the detriment of our individual health. So that's where the problem actually lies in present day society. So I'm going to look at what the World Health Organization defines health as. So health, according to the World Health Organization, is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And it doesn't just merely comprise of the absence of disease or infirmity. And I think this is where some of us get it wrong, particularly for those of us from the BAME community. When I got to England, I was of the opinion that for me to make myself relevant in my place of work, I have to work myself out. I have to work really hard for me to be relevant. And most of these times I spend my time. So there is a problem here. Most, if not all, the people here are based in the UK. So if Dr. Yaye's talk is based on Nigeria health and safety law, then this training may be of a disservice to a number of participants since they live and work in the UK.
So sorry, Doctor. Victor. So 90%, 99% of us in this call at this moment are based here in the UK.
Yes.
So it will be really, really relevant if you can tailor this. I don't know if you still have the time to do.
Bro, good afternoon. I'm fine, thanks, bro.
I think you're muted, Martins.
Sorry, Victor.
Yes.
So I was just saying that 99% of us on this call, as at this moment, are based here in the UK. So I was thinking along the lines, if you can actually tailor this to suit the UK audience rather than Nigeria, because we are based here. I don't know. Elder McDonald's, have you got anything to chip in on that? I can see your hands up.
Yes, I want to suggest that if you are asking Dr. Iroro to try to tailor his presentation to what is applicable to most of the participants, then you actually need to ask him to speak later, because it's just not possible for him now to tailor his presentation. So what you might need to do is to bring in the next speaker and allow him some 1 or 2 hours to prepare and tailor his presentation to what is suitable to most of the participants who are based in the UK, because it cannot be of usefulness for most of us to sit here for 1 hour 30 minutes to listen to health and safety presentation that cannot fit into what happened.
Jeff, we can hear you, Jeff.
Sorry?
She said, Jeff, we can hear you.
Can you mute yourself, please?
Can you mute yourself?
Agreed, Elder McDonald. I think that would be the wise thing to do. Mr. Taraf, can see your hands up as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I've listened to the concern raised by Elder Martins, by McDonald. It's quite cogent. What I need to make us realize is that health and safety rules and consents are universal. Okay, they are universal. I worked in the oil industry, for close to 20.
Or did I just stop sharing? Oh. Sorry, I didn't mean to stop sharing that. I just wanted to. Okay. Okay, anyway, like I was saying, I prepared a survey. I'm going to put the survey in the chat. So please, if you don't mind to have a look at the survey and then also give your responses as well. It's going to be a discussion session like I said earlier. Still get. So if you can have a look at the survey very briefly, I would give us about 10 minutes or 5 minutes or so just to have a look at the survey. Can we put raise hands emojis down? Okay, yeah. If you want to talk at any point, please, you can raise your hand to talk. But once you're done, please, you can always put your hands down afterwards. So the first part of the survey talks about workplace hazards. So you can have a look at it, go through it, answer some of the questions in it, and then we can then come back to talk about it. I don't know how many of us are having a look at the moment.
So, sorry, Victor, I'm having a look as well. So.
Okay. You can be putting your responses in. I haven't seen anyone responding now.
Okay. Okay, yes, just maybe you should spell a couple of seconds to just quickly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to make sure that you can get into the survey and then that you can have a look at it. Okay, I can see the 7 of us have it opened or are viewing it at the moment. The first question, like I said, is talking about workplace-based hazards. So it's asking if you've manually pushed or lifted items that are heavier than 20 kg. It's also asking if you do repetitive movements with your hands for over at least 3 hours during the day. And it's also asking if you perform tasks that you are not familiar with, because that's a health and safety hazard for you to perform a task that you've not been trained to perform. And then it's asking you if you interact with chemicals or flammable substances. It's also asking if you walk in awkward positions. For example, if you bend, you twist, heavy manual labor. So you're not supposed to bend or twist in manual handling. So that's why that question is important. And then it's asking you if you walk at a height that is more than 5 meters. So if you walk at a height that is more than 5 meters, it's except you're exceptionally tall, it just means that you're not going to see what is ahead of you. It's also asking if you work in high decibels. I just changed that to high noise levels. Okay, places where you would have to shout a lot, you know, and things like that. And then it's also asking if you stand for more than 3 hours in a day during your work. And then it's asking now about the manual handling part of it as well. Manually push. Okay, now I'm looking at, I'm still waiting for your feedback. Once you are done, you can submit your feedback. We still have some time to go through this. Yeah, it's asking also if there is a health and safety policy in place at your workplace, and also if you are aware of it also. So is there a health and safety policy in place? And then are you aware of it? So it's one thing for it to be in place, it's another thing for people to be aware of it. If you're done, you can just put in the chat that you are done so we can briefly discuss it before.
Actually, you may want to say something, you go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for the responses. Okay. Okay. If you need more time, let me know. Otherwise, I think I have about 4 people that have completed it. 9 people have viewed it. So I'm guessing we still have some people that are still working on it. So I'm just gonna give them another 2 minutes just to submit their responses. Okay. Yeah, the reason I'm asking some of these questions is because, like I was saying earlier, some of us that are from the BIM background, when we come into developed economies like the UK or the US, there is that need for us to prove ourselves. There is that need for us to actually show ourselves. And then as a result of that, most times we do this at the detriment of our health. And we do not realize that we're actually harming ourselves in the process of doing this, not just our physical health, but also our mental health. And sometimes these are some of the aspects that we don't really pay close attention to. Most of us work extra hours trying to make ends meet in this country. A lot of us go from one work during the day to another work at night. I can remember particularly when I came in 2010 after my master's program in 2011, I can remember that I was volunteering in the laboratory before I eventually got employed as a full-time staff prior to my PhD. I was volunteering in the laboratory at the time, but then I was also working night shift because I also needed to pay my bills. So I got to work at night and then work 12 hours, from 8 to 8 a.m. in the morning. And then when I'm coming back from the night shift, I go straight off to the lab because I have to be there by 9 o'clock. I will be at the lab by 9 o'clock, walk in the lab, take my samples, do all the things I need to do, and then go back home and sleep for about 2 to 3, 4 hours. And then off again, I go to my work in the night as well. So I never pay close attention to my personal health. And I believe some of us are like that because, you know, for some of us, we believe that if we don't do this, we will not get appreciated at our place of work. And then for some others, we are just doing it just because, you know, once we eventually do this, we might get recognized. And particularly for those that are under sponsorship, tier 2 sponsorship, we do not want to lose that sponsorship. So we work ourselves flat out. I remember before I got my indefinite leave to remain as well, while I was still at Nottingham University, at the time in just last year actually, I would spend hours and hours and hours and hours working in the lab. basically because I just want to prove to my supervisors that I am good at what I do. And then also that I am, the most serious in quotes among all of the employees. But all of these things come at a cost, as you begin to grow, you then discover, although I'm still very young, but you discover that these things drag you away from your family, these things drag you away from your friends, and then these things have an impact on your mental well-being. And it is not good, not just for you, but then it is not also good for your company as well. I remember several times my supervisors would tell me to go home and then take and sleep, have a nap for the day, and be able to come back refreshed. But not every employer will tell you that. Some of them will want to keep using you. So that is why this session is very important for you to be aware of health and safety, not just in terms of physical health and safety, but also in terms of mental, social, and also financial health and safety as an employee in wherever it is that you are employed. So I want to have a look quickly at some of the score that we have here. So it says, manually push or lift items that are more than 20 kilograms. There are 6 counts, 3 people said yes to that. So half of us actually push or lift items more than 3 kilograms. And then do repetitive movement with your hands for at least 3 hours. There are 6 counts, and about 3.3 people do repetitive movement with their hands for more than 3 hours during the day. So you can see the effect that is having on your shoulders. And then perform tasks that you are not familiar with. There are 6 respondents, and then about 2.6 of us, close to half of us, do activities that we are not familiar with. And this is not right. Your employer is obliged under UK law to actually train you on every activity that you are supposed to be engaged in. So you should not be doing tasks that you are not familiar with. So if you know that your employer is making you to do tasks that you are not familiar with, you have the legal responsibility to actually put forth this complaint to a health and safety manager, of which, of course, every organization is expected to have one. And this should be addressed. You shouldn't be doing tasks that you are not familiar with. And then the next question says, interact with chemicals or flammables, inflammable substances. There are 6 respondents, 2 people actually do that. I think then that would have led me to ask, are you aware of the COSH regulations or the COSH control of substances hazardous to health that are associated with these chemicals or substances? Have you done a risk assessment on them? Or if not, have you been made aware of the risk assessment for these substances? That is something you have to think about. If you have not been made aware of the risk assessment for a substance that you are dealing with, you have a legal responsibility to ask to be made aware of it. So this is very, very important. You cannot be handling chemicals when you do not have a COSH or risk assessment for that particular chemical. Then we ask, do you work in an awkward position? Like, for example, bend or twist or do manual handling? We have 6 respondents and 2 people said yes, that is, they do this, which is not also, if you check the HSC, that's the UK Health and Safety Environment website, you are not expected to bend, you are not expected to twist when you are doing manual handling. There are regulations for this. And if you work in an environment where you handle heavy things, your employer is also expected to take you on a manual handling course. And if you have not been given a manual handling course, you are not expected to also do manual handling. So these are some of the things that you should get yourself thinking about when you go out into the workplace. Work at a height that is greater than 5 meters. There are 6 respondents, about 2.33 people say yes. My question to you is, are you aware of some of the hazards that are associated with this kind of work environment? And then stand for more than 3 hours a day. 6 people also, and then more than 3, which is about 3.3 people said yes to that as well. So we can begin to see that a lot of us actually do things that require proper health and safety regulations. And this is why courses or awareness sessions like these are important. I'm not going to be able to teach you in proper health and safety guidelines in the workplace, but the whole aim of this course is to get you thinking, just in case you haven't been, because I'm not aware of your particular work environment, and that's the reason why I cannot take you through the nitty-gritties of for example, manual handling, COSH, and things like that. But this should get you thinking. Have your employers already taken you through some of these? And if they haven't taken you through these, you should be able to go to your workplace and then ask for this training to be given to you. We asked if you work in a high noise area, and 50% said they never do that. Every 6 months, we have about one person who does it. Every 3 months, one person does it, and then someone who also doesn't know. So if you work in a high noise area, this can have effects on your hearing. So it's something you have to pay attention to. What sort of safety guidelines are in place in your work environment to ensure that your hearing is intact after work. So some of these questions should get you thinking. I'm just going to go to the last part. So first one says, everyone receives compulsory health and safety training. We have 5 people, 4 people said yes, so 1 person said no. So there is a problem there. So why haven't you been trained? Management is extremely particular about the certification. That's very good. We have a lot of respondents saying yes to that. Systems are in place to identify and deal with hazards. We also have 1 person who isn't saying yes to that as well. So you should be able to go back after today and then be able to demand for such systems to be in place at your place of work. Workplace health and safety is considered extremely important. About 3.8 respondents are saying no to that, but it should be extremely important. Workplace health and safety, it is extremely important. There is an active health and safety committee in place. Not everyone is saying yes to that. You should go and think about it, and you should speak to your employer about this as well. An accident report is filed with due diligence, yes. Now I'm wondering if someone is filing an accident report and there is no health and safety committee. So who do you submit your accident report to? Well, I'm guessing there's an health and safety officer, but yeah, anyway. Health and safety procedures are clearly communicated, and then there is a health and safety policy in place at my workplace, and I am aware of it. Okay, I'm going to stop. I'm not going to go through all of it, but these questions are just to get just to get us thinking about health and safety in the workplace, and also so that you will begin to understand the importance of health and safety in the workplace. So according to the World Health Organization, like I was saying earlier, health and safety doesn't just involve your physical health, but it also involves your mental as well as your social well-being. I'm going to take us through what is called the wellness wheel. So it's cuts across every part of wellness according to the World Health Organization. We have the physical wellness, which most of us are very familiar with. We have the social wellness, which talks about developing a sense of connection. So this is very important because every employer wants, or every employee wants to feel valued in the workplace. So one question you want to ask yourself is, are you valued in your workplace? So this is very, very crucial as an employee. Do you feel valued? Do you feel that your employer is taking note of some of your concerns when you raise it up with them? And also financial wellness as well. Do you feel satisfied with the level of income that you are getting from your job? Because if you're not satisfied with the level of income that you are getting from your job, you will not be able to give it 100% of your time as well. Because like I was giving you an example of myself. I was doing volunteering, but because there was no income coming from there, I have to spend all night also working as well, trying to make income for myself. So safety. We've looked at health and wellness. Now let's look into safety. Safety simply means to be free of harm, to be free of danger, or to be free of risk. Any place where you are working is expected to have at a minimum an acceptable level of risk for workers. For example, what you would ask, what is an acceptable level of risk? I've put it there with a risk that has low probability of occurrence or consequence, but then high benefit or reward. I was giving an example earlier of me working in the laboratory. What we do most of the time, you have to take samples from patients, and then you also have to use needles to take the samples from patients. Now, there is a lot of risk associated with this when you do this, but you would need to ask yourself, do you necessarily have to do it? And the question is, yes, you have to do it because of your work environment. So the benefit is high. But then what are the consequences? The consequence could also be high because you could prick yourself with a needle that is already infected, and you could just also get infected. And you then ask yourself, what is the occurrence of such incidents? And that is where health and safety risk assessments are very, very important in the workplace. So if there is no adequate health and safety risk assessment to mitigate the safety concerns in such procedures, then such procedures should not be carried out because, like I said, it has high level of occurrence, though it has high benefit, but high consequence. So though it has high benefit, but if it also has high occurrence, then you cannot carry out such activity. You need to put measures in place to mitigate such risk before you can actually carry it out. So common safety hazards that are in the workplace. Safety, you have biological safety, which I have mentioned quite a lot. You have the physical hazards. You have the ergonomic hazards. Ergonomic hazards are things that do with your musculoskeletal systems. And then, of course, you have chemical hazards, which I have also mentioned at the beginning of this teaching. So why health and safety in the workplace, you might ask? So according to the International Labour Organization, incidents of health and safety in the workplace cost about 2.78 million lives every year. In the UK, I think that's about 200 people lost their life to health and safety mishaps in the workplace each year. But globally, 2.78 million people die of this every single year. And it's estimated that 85% of these are located in developing economies, including our alma mater for some of us, Nigeria. And then also there is about 375 million non-fatal work-related injuries that occur in the workplace every year. And if you look at this third point, which for me was a shocker, is about $1.25 trillion are lost in annual global GDP to health and safety mishap. So if you look at this, that's way more than the budget for most developing economies. But this is what is lost globally to health and safety implementation or mishap. And that's why it is very important in the workplace. So it is a moral and legal responsibility of every employer and employee to ensure health and safety. Of course, there are economic reasons for it, like I've just talked about the losses that we accrue as a result of health and safety mishap. Of course, a lot of employees suffer as a result of this. There are a lot of social and emotional implications to health and safety mishap in the workplace. And of course, if you do not follow proper health and safety guidelines, there are legal sanctions that could be placed upon an employer. So whose responsibility it is to ensure proper health and safety in the workplace? Firstly, it is the employer's responsibility. First, I would stress it is everyone's responsibility, but then the employer have their role to play, and also the employees have their role to play. So these points here are according to the UK Health and Safety Environment Agency. So the employer's role is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of their employees and other people who might be affected by their businesses. So that's the role of the employer. And then also the employer's role is to ensure that there is adequate risk assessment in place in the workplace when work is carried out. So that's why when we did the survey and I was asking how many of us are aware of, have been trained in health and safety risk and are aware of these. I stress that if you are not, you should please talk to your employer after this particular session. The employer role is also to pass down risk assessment information to employees, and then also to consult employees on health and safety issues as well. So what is your own role as an employee? For those of us who are employees in various industries, you are expected to take care of your own health and safety, and of course to take care of the health and safety of others. And also you are expected to report concerns to employees, or sorry, to your employers. And this is where some of us also are found wanting, because like I said, we have this desire to please, particularly for those of us in the BIM community. You have this desire to please that you can go all the way to do things at the detriment of your health and at the detriment of your safety. But you should realize that it does not do you any good, and it certainly doesn't do your employer any good if you fall ill, or of course if you lose your life, because your employer will be liable to legal sanctions and things like that as well. And also it is your responsibility to adhere to health and safety regulations. So I'm not going to dwell a lot on these, because these are, like I said, these are research data from Nigeria. But it should get you thinking a little bit about the industry in which you are working. And maybe if you know someone who is working in such industries back home and industries here as well, it might be worth talking to them about it. So a survey was carried out on the banking sector, asking them about some of their health and safety concerns. And these are some of the results. Majority of them were concerned about the long hours of work. I have just mentioned here that working long hours is detrimental to your physical health. I can remember when we were doing a risk assessment for out of hours work in my laboratory. One of the questions that the health and safety officer asked me was, what are the measures that you have put in place to ensure that someone that has worked overtime does not come back again the next day and continue working on the same experiment? Because I work with explosive gases. I work with hydrogen, methane, and carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide in the lab. So you do not want to make any mistake when you are handling most of all these things. You do not want to be tired when you are handling these type of explosive chemicals. You don't want to be stressed. And most of all, of course, you don't want to work flat out 24 hours and you are still at work. That's not acceptable. So long hours of work was found out to be something prevalent in the banking sector. And then excessive workload as well. So when you do too much, and sometimes most of us also take this among ourselves. And I think that's, upon ourselves. And that's something you want to think about, and you want to ask yourself as we finish this session. You want to ask yourself, do I, personally take up workload that I know are too much for me, but then I decide to do it anyway because I was saying earlier, you want to prove your relevance to the company. So you take on work that is too much for you. And then you find out that at the end of the day, you are not effective in all of them. It's like what we call a jack of all trade, but then a master of none. So you should be careful how much workload you take upon yourself. And then prolonged static posture was also something that was found in the banking sector. Just standing in one place, stiff, and prolonged computer usage. Most of us are falling victims of this, even in the developed economy as well. I myself, I'm a victim of prolonged computer usage, because even while at work, when I finish from the office, I still come back home, I still have to write papers, I still have to write reports, and I believe some of us are in that category. So you are advised to take a break from your screen, shut your computer, and then also take a break. Most of us actually take a break from the computer by going to the TV. That's not advisable, because this is still you going back again to the screen. So take a break, take an off screen time, and then have a time to yourself outside of the screen. This is very good for your visual health. Work periods extending to weekends. Most of us who work 5 days in a week, and then you still have to go to work on weekends. You have to think about this. What sort of impact is it having on you as an individual? Not just your physical health, but then also your mental health. What impact is it having on you as an individual? Most times we hear people who, I was told of a story of someone, a BAME woman who was coming from work. She went to work in the morning. She went to a day shift. She came back home in the evening, had 1 hour with the family, went back again to work at night, came back, and then she did that consecutively for 3 days. And she eventually fainted on the 3rd day, and then she lost her life after that. Then you would want to ask yourself, she has spent all this time actually working and she doesn't get paid for it. In fact, even if she does get paid for it, what benefit will the money be to her at that particular instance? So you want to ensure that you do not work yourself flat out. Moderator, I don't know if we want to take the 10 minutes break now or if I can carry on.
Yeah, absolutely, Victor. I mean, if you want it now, it's on you, sir. If you want it now, we can have it.
Okay, yeah, I think it's best to take the 10 minutes break now.
Oh, fantastic. So we will be here at 13:41.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. So I hope we've enjoyed our 10 minutes break. And I hope, Mr. Victor, if you're still there, please, can you?
Yes.
Make a start. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, I think my time is really gone now. So I'm going to be quick on this. If you have any question or any concerns, please just drop it in the chat also, and then we can just quickly run through some of the things that I have left here.
Thank you.
I'm just going to also give you, I've talked about the banking sector and some of the concerns that we have. Like we said, these things are not particular to Nigeria or to the developing economies. I think my video is off. Or to the developing economies, but it can also apply to us as well here in the developed economy. So you have to look at it how well you are taking care of your, not just physical, but also your mental health, and how much time you are devoting to your work, and what sort of impact it's having on you as an individual. There is no way you can be effective at your workplace if you spend a lot of hours working and very few time you spend on yourself and also on your family as well. So this is a survey of healthcare workers as well, but this like I said, this data is also from Nigeria. There are data from the UK as well, but I'm not present. I don't have those data to present here at the moment. But then you can see that over 53% of doctors, laboratory nurses, as well as laboratory workers, generally over 50%, have had needle pricks in the course of their practice. And then you see that over 40%, making a total, generally about 53.3% have had blood splashes. I remember when I was working in the lab, we had an incident where we had a blood splash back home in Nigeria. And because there was no health and safety, there was no risk assessment in place, and then there was no SOP in place as well at the time, on how to deal with things like this, SOP, standard operating procedures. Nobody basically knows what to do. And most of this blood were infected with HIV. And it's detrimental to the health of individuals. So if you are working in a place where you are not aware of the standard operating procedure for most of the process that you carry out, or you are not aware of the risk assessment that have been done, I would advise you after this session, please speak to your employer when you get back to your office, and then make sure that you have those data in front of you. In my office, we make sure that everyone reads the risk assessment and everyone also sign the risk assessment, because some people can read it and then they do not sign it. So people read it and people sign it to show that they actually understand it. And where you do not understand it, you are well within your right to ask for proper training on such activities. I'm just going to skip a lot of these things because of our time. There are some of the manual handling procedures. You can see them on the HSC website. If you are one of those who indicate that you work with heavy equipment that are greater than 20 kilograms, you are expected to know these manual handling procedures and how to deal with heavy goods. And you should have undergone a training on this before you are allowed to actually do any form of manual handling. Also, this is something that a lot of people take for granted. Digital screen equipment, or DSE, it's something that is very, very important in the workplace. Most of us use it all the time, if not, but then most of us haven't actually been trained on how to use it. So you are well within your right to ask your employer on the proper usage of DSE equipment. And I can remember that I have undergone this training myself at my workplace. And then we have actually also had a refresher course on it fairly recently on DSE equipment as well. So please make sure you ask for this training if at all you haven't been given one. So I talked about COSH earlier. So that's double S, not double O. So control of substances that are hazardous to health. So if you are someone who is involved in the chemical or biological sectors, you would have certainly prepared one of these. These are some of the things or some of the guidelines in preparing a COSH. I'm not going to be able to go through all of them because I'm very cautious at this stage of my time. But then, yes, there are guidelines. Every organization is also expected to have its own guideline in place when you prepare a COSH or when you do a risk assessment. So I would also encourage us as well, please talk to your employers. If you don't have these procedures in place and you deal with chemicals or you deal with biological agents, you are putting yourself at risk, and not just yourself, but also your family, because you go back home to meet them, and then you can actually carry infectious diseases from your place of work back home. So please talk to your employers if you've not been trained on this as well. These are some of the common symbols. You can find this on the Health and Safety Environment website. So if you work in a place, most of these signs will be up. The thing is, majority of the people don't actually know what these mean. So please, if you find these signs up and you do not know what it means, I will also stress you are well within your right to ask your employer to explain most of these to you as well. I have used an example of risk assessment that I prepared myself for the work that we carry out in one of our laboratories. So we work on like I said, I work with explosive gases. My basic form of research is the biotechnological methods or synthetic biology methods for removing greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. So that's what my research is based on. So based on that, we have to work with carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, hydrogen, and most of all these gases. So for each and every of those experiments that you need to carry out, you actually need to carry out a risk assessment, and then you have to write a standard operating procedure for your particular experiment. So this is one that I did, and I felt it would be right for us to see something that I personally have also done. You have to put the activity that it is for. You need to outline what the activity is. Most of these outline will also be in your standard operating procedure. You have to note where that activity is going to be carried out. You have to have a risk assessment ref so that people can easily go back to it, which is why organizational filing becomes very important with things like this as well. And then once you've done it, I was talking about ways of mitigating risk. So this is something that we do always in the lab. So there is no way I can say that this is not of value. I can't tell my employer that this is hydrogen is very risky, so I can't handle it, you know. So the only thing I can do is to look for ways to actually mitigate the effect, or at least reduce the incidents occurring from handling this particular explosive chemical. And so like, what are the hazards? So you have to identify the hazard that you're talking about. What are the harm that this is likely to cause? What is the risk evaluation? So you can put different numbers to indicate your risk levels. I've just put 1 to 5 there for this particular one. And then also, what control measures have you put in place to mitigate the risk? Remember, we said that you are expected to work in an environment that is that's the risk is at the barest minimum. Okay, so what control measures have you put in place to ensure that the risk is at its barest minimum? And then also we talked about risk evaluation with controls that are in place. So after you have put these controls in place, what is now the risk? You know, and then there is also a cutoff for this as well. So if your risk is above 6, in this case for us, then you have to do another risk assessment and put further mitigating measures in place to ensure that you bring the risk further down. Otherwise, you will not be allowed to carry out the experiment, particularly for me in my place of work. And I believe this should be the same in every place of work. I was just looking at data just during the 10 minutes break, and it is surprising, according to the BITC report, into inclusiveness behaviors has found that around 44% of employees have experienced non-inclusive behaviors in the workplace over the past 3 years, and this increased to 58% for BIM employees. You know, so this is what happens when I was talking about social inclusiveness in the workplace. So if you don't feel involved, there's no way you will be able to give it your all. You cannot give your all to a job where you are not welcomed. So you should also know that you are well within your right, you know, to be included in the day-to-day activities of your organization. You should know this, and you should also demand for it where necessary. I'm not going to take more time. I will stop here just in case if there is any question or if there is any concern that wants to be raised, because I believe I've overstayed my time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Victor. I'm sure we have all enjoyed Victor's presentation. At this point, I would like to ask anyone that have got a question to please use the raise up hand icon to indicate that, please. Thank you.
It could also be that you want to make a point if necessary. Yeah.
Absolutely.